LinkedIn. I am excited to be here today. If you can't tell the future, if you don't have your crystal ball, we're going to try to hand that crystal ball to you. Stay with us. We are excited to hand you that crystal ball today.
You know, he challenged me. He said, you should meet 2 or 3 people every day.
We're talking about how to level up on LinkedIn and engagement, being the go-giver, the idea that being open to opportunities.
We all deal with challenges, but how do you overcome that?
Master Connector with Steve Spiro and Cameron Toth is live on air.
All right, guys, I am so excited for this. I'm going to go big front and center. I was like, where's sound coming from? Can't control my own sound on my own computer. So hopefully you're doing better out there in the audience. I want to hear and see your comments. So get in there. We don't want you to be a LinkedIn lurker. We want you to be a LinkedIn participator. So get into those comments. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm coming to you live from Valhalla, New York. Steve is coming to you from Stamford, Connecticut. Where are you tuning in from? We want to hear that. So I'm going to send it over to my main man, Mr. Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, who's going to get us started off on this topic today.
Absolutely. What's going on, friends? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. So here, question here. Do you ever walk into a room that you feel like maybe you're in the wrong room? Or do you get around people that you feel like you're that they're living in a different stratus than you? You know, I mean, like they think on a whole nother level. I say that in a complimentary way. Obviously, they stretch you, right? And they say that they're smart. You know, they say if you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. Well, today's special guest is going to blow your mind. He blew mine. He blew my mind when we spoke. And today's focus is going to be on not only survival in this new marketplace, but also how can you really thrive and create prosperity with what's going on in today's world. So if you're ready for my man, the magic man behind the camera here, Mr. Cameron Toth, to introduce our amazing guest, please type in the comments in the chat. Let's go. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Cameron, to introduce our main attraction, our main man here.
I appreciate that. Here we go. So I'm going to throw George on the screen, nice and large there for more viewing pleasure for the folks in the audience. George Chanos, Esquire, served as Nevada's 31st Attorney General. In that role, he administered Nevada's Department of Justice and acted as the state's chief legal officer and advisor. He also successfully argued Wharton versus Bochting before the United States Supreme Court. Prior to serving as Nevada's Attorney General, Chanos has a distinguished legal career representing individual and corporate clients in all matters relating to the growth and management of their businesses. He is the chairman of the board of Capriata Sandwich Shop, Inc., which also owns Wing Zone with 200 plus stores in over 20 states. It's a big deal, folks. His core message is that success and survival in the 21st century will require critical thinking, lifelong learning, constant reskilling, and continuous adaptation. Please welcome to the show the absolutely amazing public servant, titan of industry, George Chanos. Now, of course, I'm realizing as we get into this, I didn't double check, George, and make sure I was saying the last name right. So how do I pronounce your last name? Did I get it right?
Chanos.
All right, I got it right. All right. Thank you very much, George. Say hello to the folks.
Hi, everyone.
Very good. All right, Steve, get the conversation started for us here. And before Steve jumps in, I'm just going to say we got Yolanda checking in from Frisco, Texas. We got Steph Dreyer checking in from Jersey. John McPhillips is checking in from Washingtonville, New York. We got David. I have a feeling you know this guy from San Diego, California, Mr. David Chanos Lutomsky. I think I'm saying that right.
My nephew
in the audience. Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. So Steve just backed out of this. So I'm going to sort of get into our first question here And when I say backed out, this is just jumped out. I probably having a technical issue. So tell us about our brush. Tell us about your brush with death and how it impacted you, George, because you have, in addition to an incredible work history, public servant, big deal with chairing up a large organization. You've had some personal challenges that sort of changed your view on the world, right?
I did. So in 2012, a little more than 10 years ago, I had a heart attack, and it was undiagnosed high blood pressure. I didn't realize I had it. I didn't realize my father had it. He had never said anything about it. And it turns out that I had it and put me in the hospital about 10 years ago, and it was a major heart attack. And so, when you have something like that happen, it gives you pause, especially in my situation. My daughter at the time was about 15 years old. I had a nephew who's slightly older. He's actually listening right now. I have other nephews and nieces. But in any case, when I had the heart attack, I was not expecting it. And turned out to be undiagnosed high blood pressure. And I got that under control. After that, I put my affairs together and took care of my estate planning. And I decided that I ought to also try to leave, whatever assets I had. And I identified one of those assets as my knowledge. I was the most educated person in my family. And I thought that it would be a shame for me to, pass away and take all that with me. And so how could I download whatever, I could download to my family? And so I began writing a letter, and that letter to my daughter, and that letter became very long. And once it became over 100 pages, I started to look at it very differently and started to think of it as a book. And I thought, hey, there's an idea. I'll leave it as a book to my daughter and my nephew and other young people that can all, benefit from it. And what I did was I tried to anticipate the issues and the questions that the next generation would ask and would want to know about, and to try to provide insight and guidance to the extent that I could. And after writing the first book, which was called Seize Your Destiny, A Roadmap to Success, I felt like I had accomplished what I set out to do. I had one young man write me about the book and said, your book spoke to me like the father I never had. I got all sorts of reviews and comments that were very encouraging, and I decided that I enjoyed the process. I also thought that what I hadn't talked about was the next 30 years. So I had talked about my 30 years that I had grown up in and worked in, and 60 years grown up in, 30 years really had a career in. And I thought, well, what about the next 30 years? That's the time period that my nephews and nieces and my daughter will live in. What's going to happen then? And so I had never looked at the future. And when I started looking at it as a trained researcher and lawyer, I started to see things that I had no idea about. And most of your listeners have no idea about. And most of the world has no idea about. And it astounded me. And so I thought, well, I need to share this information, not only with my daughter and my nieces and nephews, but also with, people generally. And so that became the second book, and that was Millennial Samurai, A Mindset for the 21st Century. And Millennial Samurai, if you go on Amazon and you read the reviews, they're all 5-star reviews. It's been incredibly well received. I'm giving the book away for free, so you can download the entire digital copy of the book at millennialsamurai.com. Or if you want a hard copy, you can go and you can buy the hard copy. This is the book in its hard copy form. You can get that on Amazon. It's $29, or you can download it for free if you'd prefer and you don't mind reading it on your computer. But it's like a duffel bag for survival in the 21st century. It's got what I think you need to know to live a happy, successful, and meaningful life. and to surf the technological tsunami that's ahead of you and to learn to dance with machines. And so that's what Millennial Samurai is all about.
Talk about, and Steve's back with us here. You talk about the world and what the world doesn't know. You talk about the idea that why do you say the world is changing rapidly and radically? And before you answer this, I want all my folks that are watching a shout out to Precious, who is in the comments. She's a big deal, big speaker. Love watching your journey, Precious. You are talking to people about how the world is changing rapidly and radically. And so I want everybody to do that's in the comments, type in there #world. And George's going to talk to us a little bit about these changes that he was able to sort of see. And I appreciate that you're offering the book with the free download. We put the millennialsamurai.com website into the chat so people can go right there and download the book. But again, everybody, do me a favor, put in the #world in there. George, tell us.
Thank you. Well, that's great, because over 13,000 people have downloaded the book so far, and so I'm hoping that 1 million eventually will. But let me tell you what I saw when I started looking at the future. And I've been called a futurist. I'm not sure if that term what it really means. But basically, if it means someone who's looking at the future, then that's what I'm doing, right? So I'm grateful for the acknowledgement. In any case, in 2014, theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking said that the singularity, that moment in time when machine intelligence will eclipse human intelligence, would be the greatest event in human history, greater than fire, greater than the wheel, greater than anything man or woman has ever conceived of. Now, Ray Kurzweil, who is the head of artificial intelligence for Google, he's the guy who Bill Gates says knows more about artificial intelligence than anyone he knows. Kurzweil tells us that that moment in time that Hawking was talking about, that singularity moment, could come as early as 2029. Now, when I first started reading Kurzweil, he was saying 2045. He's moved his prediction up to 2029. Most of the people that are looking at this issue now have settled around that number, around the end of the decade, give or take, a few years. But that's really what we're looking at. Some believe it will happen sooner. But essentially what we're talking about is what Hawking called the greatest event in human history, that moment in time when machine intelligence will eclipse human intelligence. Now, what Kurzweil, so this is coming within the next 6 or 7 years.
And just sort of to put some context on this, right? So what does that mean, machines having more intelligence than humans?
Well, it depends upon the degree to which they have more intelligence, right? So something that is, modestly, incrementally greater than our intelligence may not have a profound effect, but something that is a multiple of our intelligence, twice, 4 times, 10 times our intelligence would have a profound effect. Now, Kurzweil says that by the 2040s, which is 20 years away, artificial intelligence will not be our equal. It will be a billion times more capable than human intelligence. Now, what does that mean? Well, the human mind can't really even comprehend and answer that question. There's no way for us to really understand the significance of an intelligence that is a billion times our own. That's like asking a dog to understand our intelligence, right? It's just, or more, right? If your dog had an intelligence that is a billion times your own, your dog would be walking you.
Right.
So we really don't have any idea what this means, but it means profound ramifications for all of us, for the planet, for humanity, for everyone on Earth. Things are going to change. And what most people are missing about all of this is the rate of change, the speed at which that change is going to take place. It's in large part going to take place over the next 10 to 20 years. And that's right around the corner, right? So we're talking about monumental, historic, seismic, tectonic change
All right,
occurring.
Jason, let me back this up because this is some huge stuff, and we're going to talk into and folks, we're talking about change here. Get into the hashtag, do hashtag change for me, right? So we're talking about change. Talk to me about, because right now, we're sort of seeing the beginnings of this Chat GPT. Right now, if you go on Bing.com, you can start seeing some of the AI effect, right? People have now put some of this stuff out there. I just did the other day a video using ChatGPT. I created the script for that video, and it took something that would have taken me a longer amount of time to do. I talked about, or we talked about, Steve and I, in the post advertising this show, the idea that we already predict the future in a lot of different ways, right? We know that we're going to need an alarm clock when we wake up in the morning, so we set an alarm clock, right? We know that we're going to need certain things. We predict the weather. We have all these data points, and we put these things together. You're talking about intelligence, though, on another level. So how do we anticipate and prepare for the massive change that AI is going to bring to our world? Is this all a net positive? Is there some negative that we should be aware of? Because right now it just seems like this is a tool to save us time. Maybe some copywriters are going to go out of work. Maybe some humans are going to go out of work for, maybe some electric vehicles. They've been talking about that for years with trucks on the road and the intelligence of vehicles to be able to drive on their own and manage those kinds of things, the factories and Amazon. What kind of changes are we talking about?
Okay. So first of all, there's a lot to unpack in what you just asked, but let me try to cover some of it. So first of all, you talked about ChatGPT, which is interesting because I'm in San Francisco right now at the Clift Hotel, and I'm attending the Generative AI conference, which is all about ChatGPT. And what's interesting about ChatGPT that draws a parallel between what I'm talking about and what's happening right now here in San Francisco and with ChatGPT is you look at the two most recent iterations of ChatGPT, the difference between version 2 and version 3. And version 3 is 1,000 times more capable than version 2. And it came out 4 months later, right? 1,000 times improvement in 4 months. So the speed of change, the accelerating change is one of the key, I think, components to what's happening. So there's a lot that's going on here. So essentially, you've got this this new technology that is going to dwarf other technologies that have occurred in the past and provide a level of insight and a level of opportunity and a level of challenge that is greater than anything that we've experienced before. As I noted earlier, Hawking called this the greatest event in human history. And if you look at what Kurzweil is saying of 1 billion times what Hawking was talking about, you can quickly see that this is enormous. And so it's not just going to put it's not just going to put some people out of jobs, right? Today, McKinsey and Company, which is a global consulting firm, says that 47.5% of all jobs that currently exist are susceptible to automation based on existing technology. Okay, so half the jobs that currently exist can be replaced with automation, with robots, and that's today. As the cameras and the dexterity of these robots and this AI intelligence increases, that number is only going to climb. So take, for example, truck drivers are the #1 job for an American male. in today is a truck driver. There are roughly 3 million of them, and those jobs are going to be gone. Chrysler Dahmer was doing cross-country trips with driverless vehicles on Nevada's highways in 2017. We're in 2023, and so cross-country trips with driverless semis are going to become commonplace over the next 5 years or so. And it's not just driverless semis. It's Uber drivers can be replaced. There are 5 million of those. So that's the new gig economy, where 5 million people found work as Uber drivers. Well, when you have self-driving vehicles, those jobs will be gone. You've got fast food workers. I'm chairman of a company called Capriati's and a company called Wing Zone. And I can tell you right now that we're working with several companies. We were working with Miso Robotics and also with SoftBank Robotics on automating our back end and most of our restaurants that we're able to. So automation robots can work 24 hours a day. They don't take holidays. You can amortize the cost of them over a period of 3 to 5 years. And all of a sudden, you've got machines working for you that you've already paid for. The economics of it are incredibly compelling, and because they're that compelling, they're going to cause a lot of people to move into that area. Amazon, for example, you have Amazon package sorters. So they take a bin full of packages and they sort them into different bins, right? And they get paid a certain hourly wage, and they get into a bonus category depending upon how quickly and how efficiently and how accurately they sort packages. And up until about a year ago, there was no machine, there was no robot that could compete with an Amazon worker and outperform them. But last year, a company called Convariant developed a robot that could sort these packages. So the camera had to be a different type of camera that was able to pick up all the different reflective properties of all these different packaging and read their barcodes. And once they got that down, and then they got the robot's dexterity down, where it could move very quickly and very rapidly like a human. Today, Convariant's robot outperforms a Amazon human worker and performs at the highest levels of the bonus category for those workers. And it does it 24 hours a day. It can work 24 hours a day. And once you've paid for it, you've paid for it. And so you think about the compelling business argument for using these types of technologies in your business, and how many businesses are going to go in this direction. How many driverless Ubers will there be? How many driverless semis will there be? How many fast workers? There's 8 million fast food workers today. How many of those jobs are going to be lost?
Right. We see this, right? I mean, we see the change subtly happening. You see it at the supermarket, right? You got these self-checkout things. So there's one person, with 8, 9, 10, maybe 12, maybe 20 of these self-checkout stations versus 20 different cashiers.
Yeah.
Might have had, 8, 9, 10 cashiers at my local Stop and Shop before on any given day, any given hour. Now they got one over in the self-checkout lane, and they got maybe one or two, across the aisles for those folks that, are really loaded up, or, folks convenience of somebody else checking my food through the lane. We're going to get to a point where it's
Those are gone. There won't be anybody checking you out. You'll walk.
Well, that's what I was just going to say is, when I go to my office in the Chrysler building on the corner of the street, and I prefer it, this is the guy that wants somebody to check me out. I go to Amazon Go shop, and the difference there is there's nobody checking you out. You pick up your stuff and you go, and it's better than going to the supermarket because there is no transaction. You pick up your thing. There's no extra step. You pick up whatever item it is and you walk out.
Yeah.
And it's
Now,
a little
do
tricky
you get a notice?
to it, but then it's preferable after that.
Do you get a notice on your phone when you walk out that says you just purchased this item?
Yes and no, right? There's one. So when I go in Amazon Go, it says it will, but it usually says something along the lines of, "We're processing and we're going to send this to you in a couple minutes."
Okay, good. Yeah. So that's the future of retail, right? You're going to go in, you're going to walk into these stores, and you're going to pick up what you want. The store is going to recognize who you are as you enter the turnstile, and they're going to have your phone contact information, and they're going to be able to. You're going to go to the shelf, you're going to pick up what you want, you're going to walk out the door, and then you're going to get a text that says you just purchased a pack of gum.
No, and it's a wonderful experience. So for our folks, this is the Master Connector Show. We want to connect more people to more people. For if you're not a truck driver, you're not a cashier, right? Which most of the folks that are watching this show are not. You're in some sort of service.
You're a lawyer. You're a journalist. I mean, Amazon owns the Washington Post, right? In 2016, Amazon developed an algorithm. Okay, so we're in 2023. We're talking about 7 years ago. In 2016, Amazon developed the Washington Post and Amazon developed this algorithm, and it allows a editor at a newspaper to enter a query, just like ChatGPT. Okay, back in 7 years ago, right? They would enter a query. An editor at the Washington Post could say, "Give me a 750-word article on why XYZ is a traitor to the country," and that machine would write that article. Now, you might have. If you try to go to a reporter and say, "Give me a 750-word article on why XYZ is a traitor," the reporter might say, "Well, I don't believe they are a traitor, and I'm not going to write that article." Well, today, and actually back in 2016, the technology existed where you could eliminate the reporter. You don't need the reporter. The technology, which we had back then, but only a few people had it, and now everybody has it because ChatGPT is available.
Well, I think we just figured out the political problem in this country. Some of these people that we're actually seeing on TV must be robots because they're arguing these positions just without any kind of sort of ethics or morals attached. But talk to me about what some of the opportunities are here for people, because I think there's a lot of doom and gloom when we talk about this stuff, right?
So there are
jobs going to be lost. What's the opportunity here?
Yeah, there are incredible opportunities.
And let me do this get some crowd. The folks that are in the chat. First of all, we want your questions. If you have a question for George, obviously he's super knowledgeable. He's just saying he was in San Francisco. And are you still? Do you live in Nevada still?
I live in Las Vegas. Yes.
In Las Vegas. All right. Rep in Las Vegas, tuning in from Las Vegas. He's tuning in from or broadcasting from San Francisco right now. Right.
Yes.
And you're at this conference about ChatGPT, obviously knowledgeable in the area. So if you got questions for George, get those in. If they come during the broadcast, we'll get them answered right now. If they come after, I'll make sure that we get George to answer them. But type into the chat opportunity, right? Hashtag opportunity. We want that. Get your participation in here. And George, talk about the opportunity here.
Well, there are amazing opportunities. So, for example, I wrote the book Millennial Samurai, published it in 2019. Then I wanted, and it's written in short chapters. So the chapters are only 1 to 3 pages each. There are 182 of these chapters, but they're only 1 to 3 pages each for the short attention span reader. I then further distilled that down into a product that I call the Essentials, which is just 100 one-page inserts that cover the same subjects. I then wanted to distill it down further. I wanted to create a book of haiku poetry based on these 100 essential concepts, right? And so I turned to ChatGPT. And in one night, I was able to feed in the prompts to ChatGPT and say, write me a haiku poem on the subject of character. Write me a haiku poem on the subject of critical thinking, on the subject of compassion, on the subject of commitment. And it wrote me 100 haiku poems in literally, I spent maybe an hour or two on ChatGPT, and I was able to complete.
And George, I just want to say this for anybody that has not tried this out, because I know exactly what I mean. I've created a children's story. I like telling my son stories, and it was like sitting there, and I said, create a story where Xander's the main character and he's ninja warrior, protecting a village, and it wrote a whole story. It's really just, it's mind blowing, and it does it within seconds. And that's sort of this just crazy kind of thing. And so you can see right there for you as an individual, until you see it, it's hard to believe it, but get in there and try it, because what you're talking about is just amazing to see, and certainly start saying, oh, wow, what are the possibilities, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially the technology, what you need to understand is that technology is evolving at a breakneck pace, right? The pace of change is something that you're not, I mean, you look around the world today and it seems quite different than it was 10 years ago. Well, next year and the year after, you are going to see similar levels of change, right? So the change that we are encountering is accelerating. This is a key issue for people to understand. It took us billions of years to evolve, right? 13 billion years for the planet for the universe to evolve, 4 billion years for the planet to evolve. So we look at evolution as taking a long time, and historically it has taken a long time. Well, what artificial intelligence is going to do is it's going to accelerate everything. So the speed at which change is coming is dramatic. We're going from a situation where, people are dying from all sorts of diseases and have since the dawn of time, to a situation where 20 years from now, we may have nanobots pulsing through our bloodstream, curing all of our diseases, according to guys like Ray Kurzweil, right? Kurzweil says that our neural cortex will be connected to the cloud. When I was a kid, I would get on my bike, I'd go to the library to learn something. Today, my daughter and my nephew and nieces, they go on their phone, right? And their phone has 100,000 times the computing power that NASA had in 1969 when they put men on the moon, right? So today, your child has 100,000 times the computing power that NASA had. And so this is only going to increase. Kurzweil talks about when your neural cortex is connected to the cloud, you won't need the phone. And we're talking 20 years from now. You won't need the phone. You'll just think of a question and the answer will come to you instantaneously through the cloud. So knowledge will be ubiquitous. Everything that I know, you'll know. We'll all have access to unlimited information. The differentiator, the difference between us, will be who knows how to ask the right questions, right? Who knows how to think? Who knows how to create the prompts? Who knows how to be an AI whisperer? Who knows how to have a dialogue with the AI and fashion the query in a way that gives you what you want, right? The information that you're looking for.
At least 10 years ago, Google came out with Google Glass. I can't even remember the date now. I'd have to Google it. And, the prediction was, and I was excited about this, is I'd put on these Google Glass glasses and I would just walk down the street and I would see somebody's face and it would automatic recall now, because their face would pop up on the lens. The name would go there. I would never have to remember a name again. Not only would I not have to remember names of people that I've met, it would likely pull up names of people I haven't even met yet, right? Because it would take the data from the world. But that hasn't happened, right? And while science is doubling, right? Like you said, I mean, this just is just, what's the law that talks about the
Moore's law.
Moore's law, the microchip, right? Every 6 months, the computing power.
It's actually every 18 months that computing power will double every 18 months. and it will halve in cost. So the cost will be cut in half, and the power will double every 18 months. This has been happening reliably for the past 50 years.
Wow.
It's called Moore's Law.
So that's happening, but it seems like these predictions of the future always seem like they're a little bit more. It takes a little bit longer to actually get to some of these goalposts than people predict.
So yeah. So let's say that that it takes twice as long. Let's say that it takes 3 times as long, right? It's somewhat irrelevant, because the bottom line is that a magnitude of change that you can barely comprehend, if even comprehend, is coming. Now, whether it comes
and listen, I think we advocate for folks here because social media is, just having the tool of a phone in your hand, just going back less than 20 years, right? The ability to promote your brand, to promote yourself, to you have a book that, is now you can disseminate that through a download that people can actually handle on their mobile device. Go back 20 years, 25 years, and that's beyond somebody's comprehension, right? It's just
Cameron, imagine if you went back in time and you went back to NASA's Apollo 11, and you were in the room at NASA. You're in the room at NASA 50 plus years ago, 1969, and you are carrying your phone, and you're telling the guys at NASA that your phone has 100,000 times the computing power that they have in that room. They would have thought you were nuts. Okay? They would have thought that you were out of your mind. And then if you were telling them, not only does my phone have 100,000 times of all the computing power in this room, but all my children have one, right? Everyone's children
Anybody has access. You have a phone. You have a phone. Yeah.
Everyone's children has one. Okay.
You're in a third world country. You got a phone, right? Yeah.
They would have thought you had lost your mind. Okay. So now this was only 50 years ago. Okay. This was only 50 years ago. And what I'm telling you is that the rate of change is accelerating beyond your comprehension. So it's not going to take 50 years for this to be 1,000,000 times more capable than what NASA had in 1969, right? So if ChatGPT increases by 1,000 times in 4 months, what does that tell you?
No, it's craziness. And so I just want to, because we're past 30 minutes now into the show, and we got to bring this to a close, but this is an amazing conversation. And I know we got several questions in the chat, so I want to try to get to those, and then we'll wrap up and say question like we always do. Steve is here with us, talk about challenges with technology. I think the big
Am I okay now?
The big takeaway, I think, for folks is that you do need to embrace these changes and try to get into them as quickly as possible, because you will easily be left behind. We see businesses being left behind all the time. We got some questions in the chat, George. We got Susan who's saying, artificial intelligence replaces human intelligence? ? Will they know what we are thinking, whoever they are? So I'm just going to sort of go through all these. And Susan also says, is the race of change good for us? And then Steph, I think there's a question in there. Very exciting to think of what's possible with tech surpasses our intelligence, but also concerning as it could limit human interaction and social connection, i.e. Amazon Go Store. How do you see counterculture influencing this trend with business prioritize human-led innovation such as the Dutch grocery with an intentionally slow checkout lane?
Yeah, so those are great questions. First of all, I'm an optimist. Okay, I choose to be an optimist. I like
that after all the doom and gloom.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, it's not doom and gloom. You're interpreting it as doom and gloom.
Well, it sounds bad.
I'm running towards it. Right? Leaders don't run from problems; they run at them. Right? So I believe that we are living in the most extraordinary period in human history. I believe that it's something to celebrate. I believe that where this all goes depends on us, right? How we choose to use it and how we shepherd this technology will determine whether or not it leads to a second enlightenment, which is very possible. It can lead to a glorious enlightenment, or it can lead us into dystopian despair, right? And that's on us, right? How we deal with this, right? So,
well,
you know,
traditionally,
it's like a
past
gun.
predicts the future. It's going to be a mixed bag.
It's like a gun. You know, you can use a gun to protect your home, or you can use a gun to commit a robbery, right? It's you using the gun, right? So, you know, is technology in and of itself bad? No. I mean, technology can solve world hunger, and technology can eliminate ignorance to a great degree, right? So technology is profoundly good, used by good people to good ends, and it's profoundly bad if used by bad people to bad ends, right? So it's really all about us. And
I just want to say something here, because again, hopefully I'm not delayed on this anymore. But I just want to say, you know, I want to have you on, George, because I think it's fascinating. And you could take the tact of, you know, the Terminator and you know, the sci-fi doom and gloom side, or you could look at it as, hey, when the horse and buggy was being replaced by the automobile, there was a lot of doom and gloom people. Why are we doing this? But yet now automobiles are commonplace, and now we're moving into self-driving, like you said, right? So you can look at things in a different way.
We're going to lose our connection with the animals. We're going to lose our connection with the earth. And I'm sure there's some people that can argue we have, but
I think the way that technology,
we don't have to lose anything.
But I think what the point is, and again, I also look to things as optimistically versus pessimistically. I think it allows us to take the mundane tasks that you don't have to be, you know, you don't need any intelligence, and allow it to do its thing, so we can focus on human connection and not have to be burdened with things that are very, you know, monotonous and they don't require a lot, you know, a lot of
skill. Think about this. Think about on that point, right? What is it that machines will not be able to do, right? And what they will not be able to do are things that are uniquely human, right? So for example, you might not want a robot in, you know, taking care of you in the hospital, or in your final days. You may not want, you know, you may want a human to be your nurse, to be your physician, to be your counselor. There are certain things that are uniquely human. And those are the things that we will always do, things that provide empathy, things that provide human insight and compassion, right? So these will be the new areas for human beings to excel in. And this will be a space that is available to the human population that's uniquely human, right? But there will be other things that machines can do more quickly, more cost effectively, more efficiently. And this can create abundance, right? This can create abundance, and that abundance can be used to elevate the living standards of the entire planet. So there's a guy named, there are two guys, Gabriel Byrne and Dan Mapes, who wrote a book called The Spatial Web. And the spatial web talks about trillions of sensors. And Dan Mapes is a brilliant guy. He's working on the group that's talking about rebuilding Ukraine, right, at Davos. And so he's talking about a spatial web where there's this interconnectivity of trillions of sensors. And so they're able to, in real time, capture data about everything that's happening in the world, how plants are growing, how fields are performing, how dry it is and susceptible to fire certain areas are. All of this information, whether there's ice on the runway for a plane, whether your glass is filled with water at a restaurant or whether it's empty, and whether it tells the waiter to come and fill your glass on their phone, whether you're driving down the road in your car and you're having a heart attack and you don't even realize it, but your watch realizes that you're having a heart attack, and your watch tells the car to drive you to the hospital, and then at the same time simultaneously informs you that, you're having a heart attack. I've already instructed the car to head over to, such and such Memorial Hospital, which is 2 miles away. We've alerted the cardiac unit. They're ready for you. All of your information has been provided, so you'll go straight into the operating room. I mean, that level of efficiency is what we're talking about. That's what we're going to have. And we're going to have it in short order. And all of that is wonderful. Now, are there problems? Sure, there's all sorts of problems. And so we're going to have to deal with those on an ongoing basis.
The problems, going back to the horse and buggy scenario, the problems that, there weren't a lot of accidents happening with horse and buggies. We got into high speed now accidents and all that. But it made our lives better. And I agree with you. I believe I was watching a video on LinkedIn where, a lot of these farmers now have these automated tools that are harvesting at an incredible speed. You're talking about abundance, right? So I believe you're right. A lot of what you're speaking about, the future that's coming, I think it's exciting, and I think you need to embrace it. But we do need to wrap up. We are way over. We try to keep this commitment to a 30-minute commitment, and we are way over. So all I can say is you all, community, need to get George's books. You need to reach out to George. He's incredible. The minute we had this conversation, I said, it blew the lid off my head. I mean, I was like, what the, wow. So need to connect, need to make sure you're getting his book and the Millennial Samurai. And thanks for putting that in the comments there. But we do need to close the show out because we all have, stuff to do. And we tried to, our show used to be an hour and 15. And we decided to make a commitment to make it 30 minutes. But this is awesome. George, you're amazing. Thank you, sir, for being on here and honoring our show, because it's definitely it's been an honor having you on here, sir.
Well, thank you.
Would you just tell everybody the best way to reach you, please?
Sure. You can go to georgejchanos.com. That's my website. It's on the screen, georgejchanos.com. And gjchanos@gmail.com is my email if you want to email me, gjchanos@gmail.com. And that's it. I'm on all social media. Please follow me, and you'll learn more about these issues. This is the focus of what I'm talking about today. I'm trying to prepare people for what I see coming.
Awesome. Yeah, you definitely deserve a bigger following on LinkedIn. Me and Steve were talking about that, so we're going to work on that. We're going to get these folks to connect with you on LinkedIn.
For sure.
And man, it's what an awesome conversation. Thank you.
No doubt.
All right, so we're going to end this like we always do. I'm just going to make a quick shout out for next week. I want you to tune in, same bat time, same bat channel, Finding Your Hidden Edge with Jeff Wickerson. That link to register for next week's show is in the comments. George, thank you for doing this. We're going to take us out like we always do. We're going to count down to crush it. So we hold up our hand and we count down 5. And if you're in the audience, write it in there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Crush it! Have an amazing week, everybody. We'll see you back here next week. George, we're looking forward to the future. I'm glad we got a little look into the crystal ball. We know what's coming. We know that we need to jump on it and take advantage of it. If you haven't checked out ChatGPT, we had a few people that said they had tried it. Definitely check it out because it is very indicative of what the future has in store. Yeah. And if you are not experimenting and playing with the current technology, you're going to be way behind when it becomes the mainstream. George, we appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
He challenged me. He said, you should meet 2 or 3 people every day.
We're talking about how to level up on LinkedIn and engagement, being the go-giver, the idea that being open to opportunity.
We're all deal with challenges, but how do you overcome that?
Master Connector with Steve Spiro and Cameron Toth